Welcome everyone to our week of action. Today we are going to talk about and with a very interesting entrepreneur about his story on how to be an entrepreneur, especially in climate. Afterwards, we'll be talking to our partners who are supporting and accelerating startups all over the world at 1 p.m. Central European time. So, welcome Juan, how are you doing today? Good to see you. I'm Christian. I'm leading the ClimAccelerator efforts to bring and support organizers across the world. We know that you're a very interesting entrepreneur, Juan. So welcome, and I think to the audience, please post any questions you have to Juan about his journey being an entrepreneur. Let us know, be curious, and be very active. If you have a startup, if you are thinking about ideas or innovations in climate, please be aware that we are using a certain hashtag called 1.5 destination 1 point written 5 destination 1.5. So that's our main hashtag for today. Post about your innovations, your ideas under this hashtag, and feel free to ask lots of questions to Juan. So Juan, welcome, and tell us a bit about yourself and about Zeleros. What are you about?
So basically, my name is Juan Vicén, and I am the co-founder and chief marketing officer at Zeleros. Zeleros is a European company based in Spain that is developing a scalable Hyperloop transport system. And the ultimate goal is to connect passengers and cargo more efficiently at speeds up to 1,000 kilometers per hour and with zero direct emissions. It could be thought of such as a metro, but for the world, no? And in that sense, we are making it happen.
That's a very interesting vision, and thanks for leading this initiative and bringing this initiative out there to the market. Juan, tell us a bit about yourself as a person. Who are you? What are you about? Why are you doing this, basically?
So basically, I am an industrial engineer. I graduated from Valencia, the Technical University of Valencia, and the Technical University of Munich in Germany. And basically, my passion has been always to create technology and develop projects that can make a food like can make a good impact on society, especially related and in this decade that we are, where sustainability is urgent and we need to act now. So in that sense, when I heard about the possibility of creating a new transport system, this was proposed by Elon Musk, although it was an idea of 200 years ago. We decided to take the risk and create the company, create Zeleros, in order to make that happen. No? And previously, we have been already been doing some technology projects, like projects for NASA and other technology projects. So in that sense, we were confident that we can make that a reality with the technology we have today.
Very good, Juan. And tell us a bit more about the world of transport and mobility. This is our theme of today. Tell us a bit more about the sector, this industry. What do you see there in the past? What is needed, let's say, and what do you think about the sector?
So transportation accounts for almost 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions, and therefore it is essential, and countries are acting to reduce those emissions. For example, in terms of transportation between intercity transportation, as of now, it's a domain that is dominated by aviation. In that sense, for example, just to give an example, Barcelona to Paris takes almost 4 hours, so almost 8 hours by train. So although we foster high-speed rail, aviation will still be the fastest option. With Hyperloop, we could arrive in less than 2 hours with 5 to 10 times less energy than an airplane and with zero direct emissions. So we think that this is a real game changer, and that we and countries should promote the use of Hyperloop and implementation as soon as possible to reach our climate ambitions on time. No?
Totally.
But the
Yeah.
key to make this a reality is that we need to have a scalable Hyperloop system. Yeah.
Totally. And I think that's a very important point. Tell us about your story being a climate entrepreneur. Like, entrepreneurs are active. We've got entrepreneurs listening in here probably. What's it like to be an entrepreneur, especially in climate? I mean, what challenges do you face? What good moments do you have? I mean, tell us a bit about this.
Yeah, so basically our journey starts in 2015 when Elon Musk launches this Hyperloop competition. We were awarded in that competition, we being a very small team from Valencia, but we had a huge impact. No, so this huge impact made us that we thought about creating the startup, and we decided to make it in Europe. That's when Climate Kick came in. So we were supported by the Climate Kick Accelerator, and that way we created the startup, and we started to receive support from different bodies. No, and so, as of now, we are supported, for example, by European Commission Shift to Rail, the Horizon Europe program, and different programs that help us grow. No. And one of the most challenging moments was to bring our vehicle to Dubai. Now it is exhibited at the Spain Pavilion of Dubai Expo, but the pandemic delayed the event 1 year, and for a startup, 1 year is a lot of time. No? So we needed to plan accordingly, and we needed to change a lot of things. But finally, we made it travel to Dubai, and now millions of visitors can see the Hyperloop in the Spain Pavilion. And in fact, the Vice President from the European Commission, Mr. Shiras, visited the vehicle last week. So we are really happy to make that a reality. No? But of course, it was a tough moment in that moment. Yeah.
I guess so. I mean, tell us a bit about your plans towards the future. I mean, when do you plan on launching it? I guess lots of people are curious. They want to test it. They want to try it. Tell us a bit about the future plans you have in mind.
Well, in that sense, Hyperloop is a complex project, a technology project that has different stages. We have seen amazing growth so far, and now we are mobilizing more than 180 people and working with leading organizations from Europe and beyond, like Renfe, Airbus, Acciona, or ArcelorMittal, raising also investment from investors. And the Spanish government, the plan is to create a test track in the coming years in order to test the technologies that we have validated at laboratory scale in a 3-kilometer test track. No? In that sense, in the coming years, we will integrate all our technologies in that vehicle to test it at high speed. And the ambitious objective is to have in 2030 a technology that can be ready for moving passengers safely. And for that, we are working since 2016 to make it a reality. So this is a really exciting moment.
Very good, very good. And I guess I've got one question, which may be a stupid one, let's say, but what's the difference to the other Hyperloops? I mean, many people are talking about Virgin Galactic's Hyperloop, etc. I mean, what are the differences? I mean, where is the difference? Yeah.
So basically, we analyzed the different Hyperloops that were being proposed and other transport systems, and mainly the main cost relates to the infrastructure. So we said, how can we do a Hyperloop that can minimize infrastructure costs so it can be scalable for deploying long distances? That's where the most impact of Hyperloop could have. So in that sense, we integrate all the technologies in the vehicle. So the vehicle is quite complex, but in the end, as the main cost is the infrastructure, we are reducing radically this infrastructure cost. And also we work with aviation technologies that are already proven for mass transport. We are applying them to Hyperloop, and that way our propulsion system can work and can be certified easily in comparison with other technologies that need to start from scratch with the certification. No? So in that sense, we can accelerate path to market. And this is the two main benefits of our technology.
Perfect. And can I ask you one question? What's the ticket? What's the cost of a ticket? What will I pay in
Well, the cost of the ticket will be similar to high-speed rail. So in that sense, it will depend on many factors, but in that sense, our objective is to make the ticket as affordable as possible and with different varieties. So there will be different levels of service. For example, it's not the same the needs that a businessman needs. For example, they need to work and they value to have a silent space, but there will be other capsules that will be, for example, for families. So in that sense, we are also adapting to different types of customers, but the objective is to be as affordable as possible. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe as an entrepreneur, like what were the worst moments you have been living as an entrepreneur? What do you think? And please be honest and be open, I mean, to share.
Yeah, so in that sense, so the initial moments are always hard from our side. So we needed to do a lot with very little resources. We were a team of only 5 people, and we were competing, for example, with universities like MIT or Stanford with 50 team members. In our case, finally we got the support from the university, and we were able to travel to the US that was an amazing moment. But in that moment, you need always to align interests with other organizations that can help you to grow. No, so in that sense, in our case, it was the university, but in other cases, can be different organizations who help you to raise investment or to raise what you need to do the things right. No, and in our case, being in US and being able to present the project to SpaceX and Elon Musk's team was the best decision we could ever done, because now, yeah, we had a huge impact due to these first awards.
Yeah. And now tell us about what was the best moment you have had, let's say, where you were like, this was the best day which I've ever had in my life so far. What do you think?
Well, the best moment was when we saw our prototype moving in the SpaceX competition. It was amazing to see something that you have engineered, then later can work properly, and can receive also some awards. No, so in that case, from our side, or at least as an engineer, I want to see things working. No, and that's why it's really rewarding when you see things. But I will be very happy when I see the first passenger drive in my vehicle. So in that sense, there's still a lot to do, and that's my motivation behind to see people traveling in Hyperloop.
And I guess many people, or I hope many people will celebrate that moment, right? Tell us about a funny moment you had where like this was a mistake or this was a fun moment, like why didn't we think about this before, or just be very free in that sense.
Well, from that side, one of the funny moments was that we needed to bring the vehicle to Dubai, and in fact, we thought that it was very easy to put the vehicle, a 6 meter vehicle, in the Spain pavilion, but in fact, there was a below ground level, and we thought at that moment, what should we do, because we didn't have way to move the vehicle down to the underground floor. So in that moment, it was of course challenging, but at the same time funny, not to say how didn't we think about that. But finally, we got a way to move it down to the below ground, and now it is there. So yeah, finally, all challenges can be solved with some creativity, and yeah, that's it.
Okay, very good. And I think very good moment. I mean, maybe I want to ask one question about how you were working with all these organizations helping entrepreneurs. I mean, there are many organizations who can help entrepreneurs in different moments. You have been working and participating in some of their programs. What do you think about these organizations who are helping entrepreneurs? Like, which ones did you relate to, and what do you think about them?
Yeah, basically, we think that the organizations that support startups are key, in especially in Europe, where the private investment sometimes it's lacking in that sense. So there is always for the startups there are not so many benefits or so many opportunities that as in other countries like US or China. So in that sense, we have valued very positively the organizations, especially the public institutions that support projects on a very early stage, so that they can become the future unicorns and the future deep tech startups that generate the value in Europe. No, so in that sense, in our case, we are always trying to align our objectives with other organizations that have also same values, no, such as the sustainability in the case of Climate Kick, that was essential to align to our strategy to grow.
Yeah. Maybe I've got one special question about the private world. How are you connecting with potential private partners, stakeholders, or even competitors? I mean, what's the relationship to them?
In that sense, since the very beginning, we started with business angels that started to trust on the project. Also, we also invested in the project, and finally, we started aligning our interest also with corporate partners, companies such as Acciona, which is a leading civil engineering and energy company, decided to invest on the project. No. We achieved that also by doing lots of meetings with different stakeholders and trying to align what's the future impact that this solution can have on their future businesses. They are not only interested in investing money, but to have a future return on investment. We need to be sustainable, but also profitable. No, and in that sense, at Zeleros we have it clear.
Totally agree. And I think Do you plan on spreading out this network across the world so it can all easily interconnect, or what are the plans there in that sense?
Yeah, in fact, we just released an analysis on the global Hyperloop network, highlighting the vision for 2050 and beyond. And just as an example, a European Hyperloop network would have about 18,000 kilometers of routes connecting main European cities, and that could have an impact of 1,000 million tons of CO2 saved during its lifetime. No? So we are talking about a huge sustainability opportunity, but on the other side, a 50 billion euro revenue opportunity. So we are also talking about economic feasibility. No? So in that sense, that could be expanded to the world, and we invite governments to connect with us in order to assess the feasibility and the potential of Hyperloop in their regions.
Very good, very good, very good. Very good point of view. And I mean, tell us a bit more about your team and who's in your team, who are team members, let's say, who are they?
So basically, our company now has 40 people full time. We started with a team from the university, but then we started recruiting and we attracted a lot of interest from different sectors such as railway, aviation, energy sectors, power electronics. And right now the team has attracted senior level employees that support us in our way. Just as an example, for example, we have Clement, which is the chief financial officer, which has years of experience in the financial fields, and also Luis Navarro, who comes also from the energy sector, who has also supported and is the chief operating officer at the company. No? So as of now, people is coming from very different backgrounds, such as aviation, railway, or energy. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. And what people are you looking to recruit in the future? Let's say, what kind of profiles or people are you looking for?
So basically, we are mainly recruiting in the infrastructure, in the business side, the business development side, and also, for example, in the implementation. We have already very exciting projects ongoing, and for example, in power electronics is a very interesting topic where you need to create the linear motors and the magnetic assemblies that will be put into the real projects. No? So in that sense, it's a good opportunity for the power electronic engineers to join the company.
Okay, very good, very good. And what do you care about when it comes to recruiting? Like, what are the most important criteria for you? I think that's a question lots of entrepreneurs may have in mind as well.
Well, I think basically every person that joins a startup, they need to be dynamic. They need to be understand the dynamics of a startup. It's not the same as working in a very large company where everything is already defined. In that sense, we are more into a people that is creative and that has not only technical know-how but also the ability to adapt to the changing environment and the dynamic environment we are living. So we need active people and open-minded in order to adapt to the changes and successfully deploy the projects with limited resources.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you keep, let's say, the patience and the motivation inside your team? I mean, you will be launching it in a few years, so there's a lot of patience and motivation needed. How can you keep that up, that spirit?
Well, in that sense, I'm glad to say that at Zeleros we have always taken care of the team as the most valuable asset we have, and therefore we are on the one side working from Valencia. That gives you a very work to life balance, no? But on the other side, we also do a lot of networking events and a lot of activities outside of work to ensure that we are all aligned and that we are confident and rely on each other. No? And also commitment is one of the main things we ask for. No? So people need to be committed to do this long-term project.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking about the funding side especially. I mean, you're developing technology which requires lots of funding and lots of time. I mean, how do you see the funding opportunities for you in the future? What are you looking at and how probable are these fundings in the future?
Yeah, so in that sense, Zeleros as a startup is still in the fundraising phase. So we have raised about 10 million in public and private investments, but now we are looking for the next stage to go to the next level. And in that sense, we see interest from very different players. We are already in conversations. And in that sense, we also believe that we should go step by step. No? So first, deploy this first pilot project, 3-4 kilometers, and this will give you the trust to go to the next level and do the real scale project, maybe a European test track, in order to do the certification for passengers. No? So in that sense, it's not about thinking that we need now the fundraising for the real scale, but we need to go step by step demonstrating the technologies, and in that sense we are happy to be achieving what we first planned. Yeah.
Okay, very good, very good. I will ask you one question to give out a message to a certain audience. So what message would you get out to all the Hyperloops out there in the world? Like, what's your message to them, let's say?
I would say that cooperation between the different Hyperloop promoters is key. Since 2018, we have been cooperating in order to achieve standardization and interoperability, because it doesn't make any sense to have a Hyperloop network that cannot be interconnected between countries, for example. So in that sense, we work very tirelessly to develop these cooperations, and we ask them to keep working together because we think that's the right way forward.
Okay, okay. What would be your message to the governments and the ministries of transport or mobility out there?
I would send them a message to that their support is vital to accelerate the green transition, and that we have already been supported by different governments, but we need even more support in the coming years in order to make this happen. And we needed committed governors. Also, the people, decision makers, need to be supportive to these initiatives, because they can really make an impact, and we invite them to talk to us if they want to assess the feasibility of Hyperloop. Yeah.
What would be the message to corporates of any type out there?
To corporates, we can send them the message that Hyperloop is a project that combines very different disciplines, and most of many different industries can benefit from this. In our case, for example, we are applying our technology to the ports in order to decarbonize port operations. Some of the technologies of Hyperloop will be applied to many different sectors, so we invite them to engage with us in order to understand how these technologies can be applied in different sectors, or even how they can join the Hyperloop development if their technologies can be applied to Hyperloop.
Okay, okay. And what would be your message to investors of all types out there, or even banks?
To investors and banks, we can say that Hyperloop and Zeleros concept is the most scalable one in order to deploy the long-term routes and to be profitable on the long term. And in that sense, we ask them to engage with us in order to discover how can we achieve a profitable but at the same time sustainable system, and how they should be, why they should invest in Zeleros.
Okay, okay. And what's your message to people like us, just any person in the audience?
To society, I ask them to dream that they can travel at speeds up to 1,000 kilometers per hour, that they can connect their cities closer together. And I invite them to visit also our vehicle at the pavilion in Expo Dubai, and to engage also via the social networks in order to promote sustainable transport systems like this one.
Okay. Many people are curious about COP happening next week, COP26. Have you heard of it, and what would be your message to them, basically?
Well, to COP, I think we are really aware of COP, and in that sense, we want to give a message of urgency. We know that climate transition needs to be accelerated in order to reach our climate ambitions. We cannot delay the actions, and there needs to be every time more investment to climate solutions and to test that climate solutions on time. So for them, for the institutions and corporates that are participating on our organizations, we ask them to take these initial risks to test and to act now.
Okay, okay, okay. And maybe I'll come back a bit to you as an entrepreneur, and I'll have some last questions around here. So, who inspired you? What is the most inspiring entrepreneur for you?
Well, in fact, I could say Elon Musk, that was one, but in fact, my family, my parents, they were entrepreneurs. They started working since very early, and they worked very hard in order to achieve and get some success in their field. That is very different to my field, but in that sense, they helped me understand why and how I should be working day by day in order to achieve my goals. And that's why I'm grateful for all the support they have given me also in the early stages of the development. Yeah.
Very good, very good. And who was your most interesting mentor or expert you've ever been talking to?
Well, in that sense, one of my most interesting mentors has been well in Spain. We had different accelerator programs, and well, one of my most interesting mentors was Luis Navarro, which is now the COO of my company. So first he was mentoring us, but then later he trusted our project and became one important part of our team. So in that sense, I thank him also for giving us these important insights on the very beginning and being also now a part of the team.
Cool, very good, very good. I think very good recruitment you've done there. So Juan, we will be now looking at some questions the audience would have. So just give me a second, I will check out the questions, right? So Juan, we have quite a lot of questions, and I want to ask Samantha from our communications team to ask you these questions directly.
Perfect.
Hello. The audience
Hello.
is really interested about you, and here you have your first question. Do you think Hyperloop is going to be an everyday solution?
So in that sense, it will be an everyday solution for intercity connections. We think Hyperloop can become a solution that can be used in the everyday to travel to work, for example, to do business trips, to move cargo all over the world more sustainably. So in that sense, yeah, we think it will be an everyday solution.
The audience is wondering how safe is to travel at 1,000 kilometers per hour?
So at 1,000 kilometers per hour, we are already traveling by plane. So at plane, we are able to ensure safety at that high altitude. In Hyperloop, it will be similar, but in an enclosed environment where you already have very defined where you have to travel, and there is a guidance, no, a guidance system. So in that sense, and using aviation technologies, we can ensure that we have similar or even higher safety levels than aviation. And in that sense, aviation is the safest mode of transport to date. So yeah, we are designing with safety as a priority.
All right, well, there is more high-speed questions from our audience. So here goes a long one. Hold on. Given that travel at high velocity takes an accelerated amount of energy, would it not make sense to opt for a lower travel velocity and use the energy saved to reduce more emissions elsewhere? What do you have to say about that one?
In that sense, we already know that in distances between 400 and 1,500 kilometers, aviation is the king, because the speed that it can provide is faster than any other transport mode available. No? In that sense, we analyze different routes, and for example, in Europe, with a speed above, an average speed above 600 kilometers per hour, you can already outperform aviation. No? So in that sense, we think that Hyperloop, the maximum speed is 1,000 kilometers per hour, but of course we could have an average speed that is between 600 and 700 kilometers per hour. And in fact, we would be already outperforming and becoming the best solution. So in that sense, yeah, speed, the maximum speed is not the same as average speed, and we of course take that into account for to balance also the sustainability perspective.
Thank you, Juan. That was a clever answer. I hope the audience is satisfied. So I have two more questions. This is about you personally. What inspires you every day? What gets you out of bed to continue working on this?
Well, so in that sense, I always dream on the future, no? And what I think is that we need to give future societies a better world. And for example, when I see back, no, and I see all the things that my parents, all the society has done for us, creating roads, creating railway systems, creating aviation, it gives me a huge motivation to say, why not creating the next mode of transport? Why not giving the society, the future society, something better and something more efficient and more sustainable? No? So in that sense, I think that's the main motivation. No, we cannot stay living from what others did, no, but improving life and improving the world we live in.
Thank you, Juan. And our last question for today. What is your advice for someone wanted to get involved or start a climate impact startup from the bottom up?
So in that sense, I would recommend entrepreneurs to squeeze their brains to make a lot from little. No, so we need to be like really creative in that sense, and in each field is different. So there is not a kind of a magic recipe, but I would say that it's important to take a lot of creativity to make things different from the others, but at the same time make something that is better than the solutions available. No, so in that sense, I would recommend entrepreneurs to be very creative and to never stop working and never stop creating new things that can solve the world. No? So in that sense, well, also of course, taking into account the work-life balance, there should be stable and sustainable also in your life, and dedicate also life time to your life. No.
Thank you a lot, Juan. I think that was a very good conversation. I'm happy to have these conversations again at some point in the future. I hope you inspired the audience, and it was very good to hear from you and the story about Zeleros. And I think the future has got a lot of things for us in mind. I think that's great. Thank you all, and thank you, Juan. We will be coming back at 1 p.m. with the panel around the how ClimAccelerators are boosting entrepreneurship and climate in their regions of Southern and Eastern Europe. Listen in at 1 p.m. Central European time. But now we will be listening into a quick video about what ClimAccelerator is about, actually. See you soon again. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
My name is Niels. I'm based out of Zurich in Switzerland.
Thanks, Juan.
And I'm the lead organizational designer for our ClimAccelerator program. So why am I doing this work? My first ever job upon graduating was in parallel trade. I sent goods all around the world, causing CO2 emissions to just have a little bit more profit for my boss at the time. And I realized that's not what I want to do with the rest of my life. I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. So I was looking for opportunities to use my knowledge in business and economics to actually help combat climate change, as I feel it is the defining challenge for our generation. Join ClimAccelerator for the EIT Climate Week of Action.
Welcome everyone to our next session in our week of action. This time we want to talk with our partners on how they're boosting entrepreneurship and climate in different regions of Europe, especially in the south and in the east of Europe. But maybe before that, I'll tell you a bit about what ClimAccelerator actually is. I think many people may not know. So, in ClimAccelerator we have the big vision to help scale and accelerate the growth of many innovations out there all over the world, especially focused on climate and impacting our planet. That's the main purpose. And we are doing that by partnering and supporting organizations who help these entrepreneurs directly. So we're delivering different services and different ways of how they can impact their entrepreneurs better and how they can do more programs to scale up innovations in different markets. We also want to connect the community of ClimAccelerators to let entrepreneurs grow across borders, basically, and to really enable business opportunities between them. I think that's the main purpose. And we have been working a lot this year to support partners and to gain more and more partners in different parts of the world. Today, in today's panel session, we will be talking about boosting some of these climate entrepreneurship ecosystems in South of Europe and East of Europe. And that's where we have a few very interesting speakers with us. So please listen into them. Feel free to ask questions. Please be curious, ask questions in the YouTube chat at any moment you feel like you want. We'll have time at the end to collect them and to raise these questions to the audience directly. Plus, remember, today's day is about mobility. So as soon as you are working on innovations or you have ideas around the mobility space where you want to solve a challenge, post them and use the hashtag destination1 point spelled out 5. Again, hashtag destination1 point 5, right? But now, maybe I want to welcome our panelists and I want to introduce them, that they introduce them directly by themselves. So please, we'll go ladies first. We've got Claudia, Andrea, and Clement here. So Claudia, go ahead and introduce yourself a bit more.
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to be invited to be speaking a little bit about our program today. So my name is Claudia Carocha. I'm from Portugal, from BGI. BGI is a deep tech accelerator, and we've been working with Climate Geek for the past 6 years, doing the accelerator in Portugal and supporting more than 23 startups that raised more than 14 million euros after the program. Thank you so much.
Clement, go ahead as the next one.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot, Christian, for organizing this. And I'm very happy to be here to share some key insights of the Czech ecosystem and what we do. So my name is Clement. I'm French. I live in Prague, and I work for Impactor Prague. We run actually 3 projects funded by Climate Geek. So the ClimAccelerator, the ClimAccelerator Beyond. We are partnering with 4 other countries, Croatia, Serbia, Greece, and Slovenia. We also have a risk hub where we develop the ecosystem in the country, and we also running a program targeting communities in former coal regions in the Ostrava region. So I'm very happy to be here, and I hope the discussion will be lively and interesting for you all.
Totally. Andrea, go ahead.
Thank you, Chris, for having me here today. I'm very pleased to be part of the ClimAccelerator team. I'm Andrea Batticani, CEO of Growers for Change. I am Italian. Growers for Change is the first green accelerator in Italy. We founded this in 2019, and since then we have accelerated more than 20 startups. Our mission is to save the planet from climate change by developing startups who have technology to solve this problem. I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward to share our experiences with the community.
Thanks to you 3 to be here, and this is the first session we have in mind for this week. So I will ask you one main question first, and then we will start asking a few questions to each of the panelists. So maybe the biggest question is, what are your countries and what are your regions about when it comes to climate and entrepreneurships and innovations? What is happening in these countries? Please tell us a bit more, and Claudia, go ahead first.
Thank you so much, Christian. I can tell you a little bit of what's happening in the sustainability world in Portugal, the ecosystem. So we can say that the ecosystem of startups in clean tech is rising a lot. Right now, sustainability startups in Portugal are responsible for 7% of all the startups. So we can see that it's a number that's already representative, but it's growing a lot. In terms of areas, we can see that the biggest areas right now, we have two types. So food and agriculture with 2%, and then energy and sustainability, let's say more IoT and big data, that are counting with 4%. So you can see that there are areas that are growing a lot. They are representative and also are really in line with policies from our political stakeholders. And from only the top 10 startups in the clean tech area, we can see they already raised more than 25 million just in the previous years, and they have 7 million of revenue. So we can see that it's a sector that is growing a lot. Also, it helps the Green Deal and all the policies that our political stakeholders are holding, and that's also boosting a lot innovation in this sector. So I would say in Portugal, more or less, we can see that the sector is growing a lot with these numbers that represented.
Very good. We will come back to the Portugal region and ecosystem, let's say. Clement, maybe go ahead, and we will always go into this order. Claudia, Clement, and then Andrea, basically. Clement, go ahead.
Sure. I'm not going to have like such precise data about the region, I mean, especially the Czech Republic, but also the region. So I'm going to try to talk about the Czech Republic and the CE region. Definitely what we can see that there are like more and more dedicated programs that support climate innovators. I think that's a trend that is very visible for the past 2 years. For example, back to Prague, we started 2 years ago with the climate challenge, and it became the ClimAccelerator. It's super popular. It's the visibility is very good, and like it's quite easy to scout. So right now we're supporting more than 50 startups, and their solutions are really amazing. We have some identified climate champions when it comes to climate innovation. However, I wanted to also like acknowledge the fact that the region, the CE region, is not very homogeneous. I mean, there is still quite fragmented between the countries, and the collaboration between those countries is not very high, and we're really trying to work on that. Alongside this, there is also like, I would say we're quite lagging behind when it comes to climate change awareness and climate policy and action. I think this is still like we're in a region where most of the people do not yet acknowledge the fact that like climate change has been is still human induced, and I think that that's kind of a challenge. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs to face this very low social capital and this lack of citizen engagement. We also see a trend like sometimes of like a lack of cooperation and connection. So this is also something we're really trying to do, and I think we're going to explore this topic a bit later during the discussion. But we see like even between people and between institutions in the Czech Republic and also in the CE region, we see that there's a lack of connection sometimes. There is definitely traction in environmental innovation here, especially like in the sector of climate smart agriculture and energy efficiency, which are the two main sectors in the Czech Republic where there is a lot of expertise and knowledge. And we can see a lot of early adopters, but this requires to have like more government support, which is still a little bit low. And also like more visibility of some public agencies, like for example, Czech Invest does a very great job, but they're still not that visible. The two other topics I think I wanted to mention now in the ecosystem is that there is a mismatch clearly between climate innovation and impact first risk-taking investors. There's also like maybe something we need to work on is like the gender balance of climate innovation here, which is mainly represented by male. So this is definitely something where we can try to develop our expertise here.
Totally agree. We'll come back to that point specifically as well. Andrea, go ahead.
Okay, so I can give you our testimonials about Italy. So entrepreneurship and startup companies in Italy are kind of a new concept. All these type of very innovative companies have been, let's say, in the market for the past 10 to 12 years. What has been done has been a lot since 2012. In 2012, the government passed the first law allowing for this new type of company, which is called the innovative startup. The innovative startup is basically this kind of company that, you know, has some requisites in order to give more money to the startups and help investors to grow their capital thanks to investments in innovation. So since 2012, the government has done very good laws in Italy for creating new and innovative companies. Since 2012, there have been created more than 15,000 innovative startups, of which about 10% is focused on the green economy, let's say. So it is still a small number, but is growing very, very fast. In fact, since 2012, I have been involved in all this innovation ecosystem. So I've been part of it when it was like nothing, and now it's growing and growing more and more. And since 2012, we have created about 10 unicorns. With unicorns, we mean companies who have surpassed the $1 billion valuation. It's still a lot of big companies are also shifting their focus on the environment. They're doing green investments. Even now, after the pandemic, Italy has been the country with the most resources from the European Union, which is the plan for resilience. So we hope that all this money will actually go into green projects. The first big projects that are going to be financed are going to be the one in the digital economy and green economy. So we are talking about more than 50 billions in the next 3-4 years. So we hope that all these resources will be canalized in the right investments and in the right technologies. So we will achieve the actual, 1.5 degrees.
Totally agree, Andrea. I think we will talk about that as well now in the panel. But now I want to ask questions to Claudia specifically about Portugal and what's needed, especially in the industries and sectors in the Mediterranean region. Where should we put in more focus, Claudia? What do you think?
Yes, so as I previously said, we have the luck, let's say, from our political stakeholders to actually invest a lot on this area. We can see that last year's Lisbon, our capital, was the European Green Capital. So we can see there's a lot of investment being made to support entrepreneurs in this area. And also a lot of institutions created to support these entrepreneurs. So not only providing financing, but also creating a network, creating infrastructures that can actually support this. Right now, we can see there are two capitals of startups in Portugal, Porto and Lisbon, so the main cities. And so right now, the focus from the government has really been, from the government and from our country, has been to support startups and entrepreneurs that are not from the big capitals. So we really want to create a territory that is consistent, that is developed more or less in the same way, and is putting a lot of focus on sustainability, as it contributes a lot to the goals of development of these regions. And normally we are talking about rural regions. So right now, what we really need, and we are focusing a lot, is on this. It is really to support entrepreneurs, to really develop ideas, to create a country that is more developed and more coherent between them in innovation policies. In terms of areas, the areas that we are really developing, it's more on food and agriculture, and this is a lot related with our primary sector that is really a big part of our economy in Portugal. But we also have a lot of focus on energy, as Portugal is one of the biggest producers of renewable energies, and especially solar and water energy. So we've really been focusing a lot on that. There's still a lot to do, of course, but we can see that these two sectors have been growing a lot in Portugal and receiving a lot of support.
Okay, that's very good to hear. And I think the big question is also, what do you, BGI and the Mediterranean ClimAccelerator, want to achieve in the long term? What is the vision of you guys in that game, let's say?
Yeah, so BGI has been doing this program for 6 years now. So when we started, it was really about creating a community, let's say, welcoming the first entrepreneurs, welcoming the first ideas that were being developed. And special because when we started, there was not really an ecosystem for sustainability, right? We were talking about startups, but it was still something very uncommon on the industry. Right now, we can say that luckily it's been an ecosystem that is very strong, not only made by Portuguese entrepreneurs, but also a lot by foreigners, and is being boosted a lot because of the presence of Web Summit in Portugal every year. So we can see a lot the ecosystem growing. So for now, for us, it doesn't make sense so much, let's say, support early entrepreneurs or early ideas. We are already in a stage that we want to support real impact. So the implementation of solutions in the market that can either mitigate the effects of climate change or try to support our society to adapt to these effects of climate change. So our goal, and that we are starting now with ClimAccelerator, and we want to continue for the future, is really to bring these innovations that are already validated, they're already established, bring them into the market, create pilots, create demonstrations, and especially create the connections between startups and other stakeholders in the ecosystem. Because innovation doesn't come from startups, innovation comes from all the stakeholders together. So if startups don't apply their solutions with industry, the industry will remain traditional. So we will not have systematic change. So our goal really is to connect the startups that already have something that is valid and something that the market needs, and really connect them with the key stakeholders that we have in Portugal to really create something, create examples, create best practices that we can also share with other countries. So our goal for the next years in Climate Geek especially is really to support more later stage startups, but the real goal is really to create impact, create best practices, create pilots, to create real results that we can show after this program, and actually can make a change on the industry.
Very good vision, Claudia, and I think we can completely share that. I want to ask Clement 2 questions as well. Clement, maybe explain us what a climate startup or entrepreneur is, just for you to know. We had an interview just an hour ago, basically, but Clement, explain to the audience what this is.
Thanks a lot, Christian. I think, I'm going to reply to this, respond to this, and I think it's a great question because I believe that might be one of the reasons why the ecosystem in the Czech Republic and in Central Europe is advancing for sure, but definitely not major the same way that it is in Portugal and Italy. And to get to this definition of what is a climate startup and why it's important, I just want to remind that the IPCC really, to achieve 1.5, and I think this is really the topic of this Climate Week of Action as a lead up to the COP26, that we need to have rapid and far-reaching transitions in all the sectors, and it has to be done in scale that we have never seen before. So the challenge is really there. I think that climate breakdown, the impact of climate change, has become mainstream in society. Even here, actually, even though some people might still question a little bit where it comes from, but I think it's become mainstream, the fact that we need to act to change the situation. We see a lot of actors actually that position their innovations, so they can be startup, they can be corporate innovations, like traditional actors, and they reposition themselves as impact-driven environmental initiatives. I mean, we see this clear trend of especially big corporations, multinational companies who have this objective to be more sustainable. What it tells us is that we need to distinguish between those initiatives that really mainstream green innovation and those deep climate innovations. And those deep climate innovations that are brought by early stage or more mature startups. And this is really crucial that, I mean, we as ecosystem players that impacted Prague and its partners in the ClimAccelerator, we're able to identify really those companies, those startups that really have a real validity of their climate impact claim. And I think this is a topic that will be discussed this week with the team at Impact Forecast, that really we're able to really identify those startups that really contribute in their DNA to solving a climate challenge, be it mitigation, be it adaptation. And we also need to kind of assess the intent and the entrepreneurs. And I think the relationship with those entrepreneurs is very key to making a successful, first of all, program dedicated to support their growth, but also to try to build ecosystem, because it goes also around them. So why ultimately we need to define it this way, why we need to spend so much time maybe to try to understand what it is, that it is very much difficult to distinguish between this innovation that could be picked up by existing markets, such as like business angel and VCs, private equity and corporate, and what are the innovation that require this very early stage risk impact first innovation. And I think by making this difference, we can really drive financing towards the right startup that need actually this money, this capital, to really like scale up and increase their impact. For example, like at Impact of Prague, we're very much connected. The co-founder has this impact investment fund, which is the first in the Czech Republic, and we see a lot of connectivity between driving this financing towards the startup that are also in the program and that benefits from mentoring and expertise, which is really the core of what acceleration program does. So I think this question is really important to understand the ecosystem.
Yeah, totally. And I think the big question is also, what's your role in there? I mean, impact hubs are active all over the world, but what's your role in there? And you just mentioned a bit around it already.
Yeah, exactly. I think in a way we're quite similar to ClimAccelerator. So I think we very much like the partnership with you in the sense that we're trying to match the demand and the supply for climate innovation. I think what we want to do in developing the ecosystem is make sure that those entrepreneurs that actually really try to solve a topic, like be it like in climate smart agriculture, be it in like energy efficiency, be it in waste management, for example. I think the principles of circular economy are becoming very much mainstream in the Czech Republic, and it's a very strong actor in this domain. But we're trying to match actually the interest from investors, but the interest also from the public to have this sort of innovation, to have really a new market that they can really benefit from. So this power of communities actually that we're trying to create is for us to be able to attract the best talents and to create success stories. So there is this snowball effect where the best talents in the region will actually inspire other actors to also come up with their innovation. And in that way, we can, I think, really kickstart and boost the ecosystem in a very meaningful way. For example, like we have one of the climate startups in the ClimAccelerator, which is called Circle, which is a digital waste to market waste management platform that connect businesses that want to sell their waste. And you can see that actually the entrepreneur who is at the origin of this company is really much active in different platforms, or we try to build also a vision for society that is very impactful. And we try to champion those organizations, because otherwise we would just be working on the silo where we would just help a business, but we would lose the overall picture of what is true impact. Definitely with the ClimAccelerator that we have in the consortium, we also try to develop those translocal collaboration, because we see that for example, there may be a municipality somewhere in the region, let's say in Greece, that has a challenge when it comes to impact to climate change, that want to really improve the livelihoods of their citizenry. And we can try to connect also like with the solution in innovation from the Czech Republic. I think this is also a very powerful tool we can use, and we're trying to work on this ecosystem development beyond actually just the Czech Republic for that matter.
Totally, and that's very good to hear. I want to ask Andrea, why are you planning to do a ClimAccelerator, especially in Italy? What's your motivation behind?
Has a very similar vision and mission to the one of ClimAccelerator, so that's why we decided to join you and to be one of the first organizations in Italy to foster this type of acceleration program is a real honor. And we were doing kind of the same type of acceleration programs even before joining you. So I think it's very important to team up together in order to give startups a very international platform where they can exchange ideas, they can find capital, they can find talent. And also I think with the help of you guys and the European Union, we can institutionalize more our actions. We, as I told you, I was one of the main actors of the startup ecosystem, and what we've seen since 2010, 2009 until 2012, where like laws were passed that with the creation of a big community that is mission driven, we can achieve a lot. So the same we want to do on the sustainability and green economy side. So create acceleration programs, create physical spaces like co-working or like accelerators, where people come together to solve the biggest human problem. This is our biggest problem for humanity, climate change. If we don't act now, we might lose, the ability to live in this planet. So we are very motivated, and we want to take all these topics into the politics. So we want politicians to understand more about what we're talking about. We want them to understand the innovation that is behind all these clean tech solutions, and don't just talk but act. So we now have the funds, we now have the right ecosystem, we have a big community of mission driven entrepreneurs in Italy, but not only in Italy. As we can see from this panel, people from all over Europe and the world are coming together to solve the same issues basically. So I think it's very, very important for us to come together, work together, have the same kind of goals in order to motivate entrepreneurs, young people, but also kind of oblige the shift into a more green, sustainable, and just economy. I think we can do this all together. I think that we need to work with all the stakeholders, not only entrepreneurs and investors, but also the general public and people in power. So governments, municipality, and so on.
And that's why I want to ask the question, how can we involve even the private sector? And that's an open question to all of you. How can we involve the private sector in here, and corporates or individuals, to help support more you guys and entrepreneurs? What do you guys think? Open microphone.
Okay, so I can give you kind of the experience we had with the, let's say, startup ecosystem, which is, our sustainability part is, part of this ecosystem. So, I think with the same kind of actions, we can actually involve the private companies and the private multinational by doing, by selling them the innovation, for example, or selling them the mindset and the formation, okay, now we need to rethink about all our economic model, I guess, because a model that is based on the scarcity of resources will bring us where we are actually. So I think that communities like ours and they need to talk for sure with the big companies and with the governments, because they understood it. I hope it's not just wave riding also for the big companies. That's the thing that I'm most scared of, that's why we need to act as the policeman, So say we develop the impact assessment of really how your behaviors are green driven, and then we offer them this type of services and motivate them to follow our path.
What do you think? What do you think, Claudia or Clement? What do you think about this?
Maybe I can share a little bit about what we've been doing. So as Clement already said, the goal is really to match demand and supply. So we really try to involve corporates as early as possible in the program. For example, when we do the scouting phase and the selection process, we really want to involve the corporates, because it doesn't make sense to be supporting startups that, although their innovation is incredible, if they don't fit the needs of the industry and the public and private sector in Portugal, to really try to involve them as much as possible in the beginning of the program. So when we do the selection, we always involve corporates or investors in the selection. And that's our way to really have this management of expectations and to really understand if the innovations can really bring something into the industry right now. And after the selection, so the corporates really help us on this. And after this, we really involve them on the whole program. So we don't want just to have, let's say, one event where they come and they go. We really want to involve them in not only the progress of the program, but actually the development of the startup. And for this reason, we always have this mentoring program where we have mentors supporting our startups. And these mentors should be the corporates. So should be someone that not only is part of the industry and can share their knowledge and their skills, but actually it could be a potential client or a potential partner. So our goal is always, when there's a chance to do this matchmaking between this private and public sector and our innovations, we really foster this to happen. Of course, they are also involved in all the trainings and all the events that we carry during the accelerator, but we really look forward to not only be something casual and something that happens once. We really want to create a relation between the corporates and the public sector and our program as well. So we really try to involve them as much as possible, and our main goal, of course, it is that if they want to do pilots together, we are here to support them. So during the program, we also have this characteristic of business development, let's say, where our team is dedicated to create bridges between the stakeholders. So our main goal in the end, it's really to create bridges between our startup and the success. And by that, we know that public and private sectors are really a key stakeholder. So we really, even after the program, we still support them in creating these bridges.
Totally agree. I mean, totally agree. Clement, go ahead. What do you think about this?
Very good point. I think we need corporate MNCs to actually define the challenge that can be very interesting for climate innovators. I mean, I think many businesses have due to their size actually and their real engagement towards sustainability can redefine the challenge that a climate innovator might be responding. And I say that especially in the context of the Czech ecosystem, where actually maybe public procurement is difficult to access to a lot of climate innovators or even social enterprises, because that's the way it is. And I think if there is a message I would like to send actually to the Czech government, it's really to also change this access to public procurement. The reality being that actually climate innovation is mainly in the business model that we have in the program is mainly B2B. Actually, it's and sometimes actually if we're going to expand their business line to have B2G, meaning business to government, but also partnering with more than just corporates. We can also partner with research institutes or NGOs. For example, in the program we have a partnership with WWF. Because those actors actually are very strong in connecting with the public. They're very strong in raising awareness on the issue of climate change, on the issue of the need to take action now. And there will not be any ecosystem if the public and ultimately the consumer do not believe that opting for product A that is sustainable versus product B that is more traditional and quite impactful in terms of CO2 emissions, well, they will look mainly at the price. I mean, they will not look necessarily at the intent or at the overall objective. I think most of the consumers are very niche in terms of sustainability. So I think the ecosystem is really especially in the ClimAccelerator, and this is what we're trying to do, but also in other projects funded by ClimAccelerator, is we're trying to convene all the power of all those communities, all those different actors, not just the government, not just corporates, but also research institutes, NGOs, consultancies, and try to really develop a sort of approach that answers to the needs and also that where climate innovators can have a product that co-yield benefits, really that it's not just the impact the climate impact benefit, but it's also the benefit on their health, benefits on their purchasing power, because ultimately consumers also very much sensitive to that, definitely. So I find actually framing those acceleration programs in this sense, and having challenges brought by actually real demand for innovation is crucial, and this is really something we're trying to address in the program.
Okay, very good. I have more questions to you, but before that, we've got our audience who has a lot of questions. So let me check out the questions, and then I will start asking them to you guys. So we have 3 questions. The first of them is more on a view on a startup as such, and the other 2 are more talking about governments and what resources they have. So I will do the first one, and maybe Clement, as he was talking about startups, could be a good one to respond to it. I think there's one question: what are the benefits and challenges for a startup when rethinking your business model? And if the others want to add, you can add after Clement as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's quite important to make sure that, I think this is the most important step, to redefine a business model that does make sense. Because from a survey we did in the Impact of Global Network, is that we realized that more than 30% of the reason for failure is actually that is the innovation, the product is actually not finding its consumers. So there is a mismatch between actually what the company is offering and what's the market actually. So I think it's quite important to make sure that that really the business model is carefully crafted in a way that really it responds to a innovation demand on the market. Right now, it's true for the Czech Republic and many Central Europe countries, is that mainly the market for climate innovation is mainly about businesses themselves trying to be more sustainable. So they're also asking for some innovation when it comes to their processes, and so the market is mainly framed this way. So really, what is crucial is to make sure that it is resilient to different impacts. That it is really important to identify very early whether the business model does make sense, and that it can really lead to a strong MVP, and then there can be really traction. I also want to mention the fact that actually those business models, and we have seen that and it's still happening actually during the COVID pandemic, that those business models also fit resilient for major impact that can happen on the market and in society. I think it's quite important that because of the vulnerability of those early stage companies and even some scale-ups, it is quite important that they're resistant to different sort of hazards or impacts that you can see in society, because their vulnerability is much, much higher than others.
Good. And maybe I want to jump to one of the next questions. I think that may be a good question even for Andrea. He was talking a lot about, let's say, the governments and how politicians could support. The question is, what are good resources to get more familiar with European Union's green capital and the processes or institutions that grant it? Do you guys know a bit about this?
Yes, okay. The European Union does all the financing programs. The last one was 2013, 2020. I think some countries still have those resources that they have to spend. And now there is the new programs 2020, 2026. And there will be the most funds. There will be the next generation EU. There is also the European Innovation and Technology Fund. There are lots of calls which are based on some types of technology. All these programs are usually part of a bigger picture and part of, the goals that the European Union, along with the international organization, they have, looking forward to 2030. And usually when you do this type of financing projects, depends on the steps you are, on the level the company is. So if it is small startups, there is the 50K grant. If it is small and medium enterprises, there is the 500K grant. And for bigger projects, you need to involve, universities, a group of companies. So there is the money and can be found all in the European Commission portal, where they have listed all the resources available.
Thank you, Andrea, for mentioning them. Very good. The next question may be even for Claudia or for anyone. What happens if your government is headed the wrong way? What do you guys think?
That's a tricky question, right? Because there's so much we can do. Like there's a limit for our action. Let's say if our government goes into, let's say, the way that it's not really aligned with the goals of sustainability, first I would like to think that with the European Green Deal, with the new policies that are coming in, I like to believe that our governments are more aware of the effects of climate change. And for that reason, it's easier to convince them to start making an effort of this. If not this year, they will recognize it for the next years, because climate change is something very visible. It's not something that we can hide under the carpet. So I would say that if this actually is something that happens, one thing that we can normally, I would say, our strategy, let's say, to involve more governments, they are more, let's say, they have more questions about connection with Climate Kick. Normally what we do is really not only bring ourselves to this conversation, but also bring Climate Kick. Climate Kick is a network, the biggest network of clean tech stakeholders in all Europe. And so we like to bring them to also the conversation, okay? So to really show that first we don't need a lot of steps, right? Because governments sometimes think that the process, the decision-making process is really slow and it gets a lot of investment, but actually you can make little steps every day. But we like to bring the stakeholders to the conversation to really show them that this is not something that it's happening on the city, this is something that is happening worldwide, and they can be part of this movement, they can be part of this change. There's a lot of stakeholders that are already being brought together to actually make a change together. So the cities are not doing this by themselves. They have this network by themselves, because sometimes there's also this fear of, okay, there's a high risk for me to do this. And actually, no, there's a network behind you that can really support you in making the changes. So I really, my, let's say, positive thinking is that governments are more aware of this. Sometimes there's fears of investment, there's fears of risk, but with the right community behind these actions, they will eventually start making the progress. Maybe it will not be a big impact on the first time, but maybe it will be little steps that will create this big impact in the future.
Okay. Who of you three is the expert in mobility? Hands up.
Okay. I would say that. Oh, sorry. You go, Andrea.
No, I mean, I love to do acceleration programs, and I love to run an accelerator, and I love to have fun because I have knowledge of everything. Because this makes you very motivated, makes you knowing a lot about many sectors. Yeah. And I wouldn't say I am an expert in mobility, but as everyone, I think we know something.
Okay, I will ask you a question then, Andrea, because we've got a mobility-related question here. How can we really engage the local authorities that are in the mobility sector? One of the leading driving forces that through their choice can change goods and people mobility landscapes. So how can they really engage them to change really that landscape of mobility? What do you think?
Okay, so on the mobility side, most of the crowded cities, with a lot of traffic, most of the traffic it's used by the public, which use their own car to do movements of less than 5 kilometers. So if you can eliminate, let's say, 50% of traffic by giving people a good alternative, which is green and doesn't make traffic, then this is a good solution. So in the end it comes to what we have already. So it comes to bicycles, it comes to electric scooters, and a good network of public transportation. If you have these three things working together, you can eliminate 50% of the traffic. Still, I think with the electric vehicles, this is just getting better or something. It's not solving the problem, because all the emissions will be cut by 20-30% with electric vehicles. So we do something, but will not probably be enough. So I think we as a human species, and as this in post-industrial revolution world, we have shaped all our cities car-centric. If you think about it, everything is constructed with the car in mind. Okay, so to change this will be super difficult, and I think we will need more greener solutions than electric vehicles, which they will solve some part of the problem but not the whole thing. So I guess the first thing for governments to do is to concentrate on reducing the use of private transportation with a good integrated model of public transportation and green stuff. And when I say green stuff, green mobility doesn't mean the electric car, but it means your foot, your bike, and this.
Okay, very good, very good. I'll come to the last question. This may be a question for each of you to respond to shortly. And I think the question is really, how big can you scale ClimAccelerator programs? And what would be your restraints to do so, basically? And I think Claudia goes first, and Clement and Andrea. A quick one.
Yes. So how big can we scale? So I really believe in this program. I believe that it's really possible to scale, and we already see the proof and the track record of this program being implemented in 14 countries. So it's a lot of countries. So we already see results coming from it. What are the biggest strengths of this program? It's really the partners and the community that we have behind it. And that's the main reason and why we can scale this program. So the network of Climate Kick and the partners behind it can really take this program besides our borders and go to other countries. And I think that's the main advantage that we have to being part of ClimAccelerator. The biggest constraints, I will say that, of course, there's always constraints in awareness of climate change, in investment in climate change. But I really believe that the network together has the right stakeholders to really scale the program, to create an impact in different countries. So I would say that I believe this. How can we do it? Bringing this network together, really involve key stakeholders in each country to bring to the community and to create the impact.
Yeah, totally agree. Clement.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think it's an amazing program. I think you've managed to recruit more and more actors of change all over the world, and I think it's quite impressive how many countries actually now have a ClimAccelerator and trying to achieve this goal of tackling climate change. I think I think to scale, what's important is that we also put the ClimAccelerator in the ecosystem, meaning that connect that with grassroots community movements. I think it's quite important that it becomes part of the talk of the town in a way. So one way to do it is also within the program actually to embed a lot of events, outreach events. So that actually more and more people know about those climate champions. I think sometimes I just have the feeling that we're a very tight-knit community, that we're all very much like determined to do a big change to solve the climate crisis. But I also feel like we might lose we might have a disconnect sometimes with the public in general. So I think to put it in society as well, the ClimAccelerator is a very good way to actually scale it up and to make our those climate champions, climate innovators, mainstream, especially if their business model is more on a B2C kind of model. So definitely this is a way I would see that it can really become really mainstream, and that people really see what are the startups that are and what they do exactly. Because I think many people do not necessarily see what it is to do a climate innovation. It sometimes to many people it doesn't really resonate with them. And actually, what we've done recently, we've done a campaign on like many of our startups, like on Facebook, and there was a lot of engagement and reach actually. And you can see that there is really interest in those solutions. So definitely, I find that this is the right way to go to, and also connecting to the other side of like the finance world. I mean, I think like it is important to be talking with impact investors, those that are willing to take the risk, also like to finance those early stage startups, like and make them and boost them as well, because without doubt it's going to be quite difficult for them, especially if they have very little access to capital at the beginning and not able to bootstrap. So that would say one way to scale it up, and I really believe that is possible. One of the constraints I think is that especially like in our ClimAccelerator, we deal with many sectors, so it's quite difficult to become an expert in every sector. But we have a pool of mentors and experts that can really support us. It is super important to define the challenges of the ClimAccelerator very neatly, because it gives us some drive and energy.
Totally, I couldn't agree more. Basically, Andrea, maybe you're the last one. What's your way of scaling the ClimAccelerators, and what would be your restraints maybe coming up?
I agree with the guys. Everything they've said, it's very true. And I think this movement will scale a lot. Why? Because when you are mission driven, there is nothing that can stop you. Like, okay, so we as Growers for Change, we have in our name, logo, Growers Change. So change, it's really part of what really motivates us. Being part of the ClimAccelerator, which has a very similar mission to ours, makes us very, very motivated. So I think that when you have a global community which is, mission driven and wake up every morning to try to save the planet, this is really motivating and is contagious. Whenever I talk about what we're doing, people get crazy about it. So I think the scaling will not be a problem, and the more and more this climate crisis advances, the more the general public will understand that what we're talking about is true, and we are not aliens. And so being mission driven is the most important thing to scale something. So I'm really happy to be part of this community, and I really want to this year and the next years work at solving this very big problem that we are facing with with all our network, with all our competences, with all our crazy ideas, with all our financial resources. So I don't think there will be constraints. Actually, the more we go on, the more we'll get big.
And that's the attitude we should all have, basically. I think that's what we're here for. That's what we're going for. Thank you to Fabio, Rogelio, and Bjarke for all these questions as well. Thank you to all the 3 panelists. We've got, again, Claudia Carocha here from BGI, the Mediterranean ClimAccelerator. We've got Clement Maufras from Impact Hub in Czech Republic and the Beyond ClimAccelerator. And we've got Andrea Batticani here from Growers for Change out of Italy, starting a ClimAccelerator soon. Stay tuned. We will see each other again tomorrow, basically in the next sessions with Climathon and also with an entrepreneur at 12 p.m. Central European time, and a panel on Africa and what we are doing in Africa to boost entrepreneurship and climate at 1 p.m. Central European time. So stay tuned, please. Now we will continue with a session at 2 p.m. workshop on Talking Climate with Dr. Diana Bourne, basically. Stay tuned and stay connected. We've got a lot ahead of us in this week of action. See you soon, and thank you to all the panelists. Thank you and goodbye.